The Cape's Big Wake Up, 6 to 9 a.m.
All right, loads of grief doing the rounds at the moment, and we seem to be caught up, all of us, just in this incredible sense of needing to deal with loss. We've all lost friends, we've lost family members, we've lost colleagues, we've lost associates along the way. Such has been the devastation wrought on us by this pandemic, those feelings of loss are sometimes very difficult to process and to deal with. Somebody who's needed to endure personal loss after having suddenly lost a partner started writing about it, blogging initially, and it's now translated into a book called Behind It All. I've got Lesley Achilles joining us, not only live on the radio, but also live on Facebook and YouTube. Lesley, very good morning. Thanks so much for your time here at our breakfast.
Good morning, Aidan, and good morning to all the hearties out there.
All right. Tell me a bit about your journey and just how it is that what you went through ended up in book form.
Yeah. Well, my journey started almost 5 years ago, where I suddenly lost my partner of 6 years. So what happened is this was my first dealing with such a traumatic loss in my life. Maybe I'm lucky to have been grown when all of that hit me.
Yeah.
So obviously not knowing how to deal with it, what to do with myself and how to express myself, I ended up for 2 years just started writing. I started as a blog, just me, because I drew to myself, and this was a way of just getting it out there, and also so that people around me could know what I was going through, even though I wasn't actually going and talking to them about it. So I sat down, I wrote for 2 years, and after the 2 years were passed, I've kind of worked through what I needed to work through, and it just lied somewhere. It just stayed there for about another 2 years. And then last year when the pandemic hit and we were all in lockdown and people were needing to deal with thoughts that maybe you haven't dealt with before, I sat down and I thought, okay, I have this blog now, I have all of this, I have this experience. What am I going to do with it, and how am I going to get some purpose from it? Because I'm someone, I need to have purpose with everything that I do in my life. So I decided to publish the book, and I did a self-publish because also it's a weird time that it was, obviously. So I sat down and I decided to publish. I self-published. I looked at different avenues and stuff and found someone who would actually publish it for me. So yeah, and that's how I ended up with the book.
Yeah, and I suppose people who are looking for advice, or people who find themselves in the position you found yourself some years ago now, they need to draw from somebody else's experience. You don't want an academic or theoretical approach. You know, the second you read some of these things and they very dispassionately talk about the stages of grief, and you could encounter this, you could encounter that. That seems to be very impersonal. Yet when you latch onto somebody's story saying, this is what I went through and I felt pain and I was in denial and I felt anger, you know, the second you personalize that story, it just serves as almost comfort and motivation for somebody else. The problem with that, though, Lesley, is it's your story that you're putting out there. It's you are putting all of that pain out there for the world to see. It's giving a lot of yourself, don't you think?
It's extremely daunting knowing that I'm putting this raw emotion out there.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I sat nights and days sitting on my own, writing every feeling that I was feeling. And when I published it, I didn't change anything. I left it exactly as it is. And the reason I did that was because grief is something people don't talk about. We all go through it at some stage in our life. But I think because we all go through it, we don't really talk about it because it's common. We've been desensitized to it. Everybody goes through it. Just get over it, or you'll be fine, or whatever. We don't really talk about what we are feeling and what we are really experiencing. And grief is a very personal thing. Each of us goes through it in our own way, in our own time. And because of the relationship of the people that we've lost, that also makes experiences different and unique to all of us. So I've left it exactly the way that it is, because so that someone else can feel, oh, she felt that went through the same thing. So what I'm feeling is okay. There's no right way, there's no wrong way to go through grief. And it's okay the way that you are going through it, the way that you are thinking about it, the way that you are experiencing it. There's no wrong way to experience grief. And I think that is why I left it exactly the way that it is. And also, even though it's a story of grief and loss, I want this to be a story of hope, a story of encouragement, a story of it is okay and I'm going to get through this. Doesn't matter how long it takes, doesn't matter how difficult it is, but I will get through this. And that's the story I want out there.
All right. Talk to me for a second, because as much as you had said, we don't know how to deal with grief. There are two sides to grief. One is the people who have lost somebody. So I might have lost somebody. That's the one very obvious side to grief. The other is the people who are meant to support me in my time of grief. And as much as we don't know how to deal with grief, we also don't know how to support. So what happens is we end up saying stupid things like, hey, toughen up, be strong. Come, now's the time to be strong. And you almost get these conflicting messages when you're at your most vulnerable. Somebody is giving you, I'm assuming it's heartfelt advice, but it's the wrong advice. It's the wrong thing for you to be told at that point when you are almost still in that sense of shock and disbelief, and you don't quite know what's hit you like a ton of bricks. You've got some well-meaning aunt or a brother or a family member, a colleague telling you to toughen up, man up, men don't cry, be strong. That's the worst thing you can tell somebody at that time, right?
Exactly. People say the weirdest things with the best of intention when you are going through grief, just because you're awkward around each other. And especially now during COVID, we have these drive-bys and we have these online memorials, and you can't go to someone and just give them a hug. Just support them in this time. So it's even more so awkward in the time that we are in. But the best thing to do for someone who's going through grief, who's in the thick of it right now, is listen. Encourage that person. Don't ask, are you okay? Because then they're forced to say yes or no. Or people like me, I would just say I'm okay, because what am I going to say?
Conditioned response. How are you? I'm fine.
Exactly. I'm fine.
It's the thing you answered to that very predictable question. Yeah.
Exactly. So what you maybe can do is ask the person, how are you feeling today? And then when that person starts talking, just encourage them to keep on talking for as long as they are comfortable talking. Also, don't put someone in a position where they feel obligated to have a conversation, where they actually just want to pull back and just be in their thoughts and in themselves in that moment. But also don't leave that person for too long on their own.
Yeah.
Just check in. Or if you're going to send a WhatsApp, send a little emoji. It also doesn't force that person to respond, but know that they know that you are there for them. They know that you're reaching out to them. So it's awkward, but just encourage that person to talk and let them know that they are in a safe space.
One final thing, Lesley, grief doesn't stop and the mourning doesn't stop when the funeral has happened. I hear people, it's been 3 months already. She's still crying for that man. It's almost, it runs deeper than just a lack of sensitivity. I think it's a lack of understanding of how debilitating sometimes grief can be. And that sense of mourning is different one person from another.
Exactly. Like I said, it depends on who it is and the relationship that you had with the person that you've lost. A mother to a child, I mean, you can imagine, I can't imagine what that kind of loss is like. A wife and a husband, a grandmother to a grandchild. I mean, that we kind of have the idea that is like almost like one kind of relationship removed. So the loss is different. Losing a colleague, losing a friend. Like I said, there's no timeline to this. And we have to be sensitive to that and not kind of want to nudge someone to get over it, because that is when things happen, like you suppress your feelings because everybody's expecting you to get over it now. And then 10 years down the line, you have this breakdown emotionally and you don't understand why. And that's when we kind of have to start unpacking and figuring out where this is coming from. But for me, what helped was to deal with it now, to go through it now, to experience it now. And it wasn't easy, but I feel like I've now actually been able to move through it and come through it. And that is what I'm trying to show in the book and to express in the book so that someone else can have that kind of comfort in the sense that if she can do this, I can do this. If she can get through this, I can get through this. And that is the purpose, the main purpose of why I did this.
All right. Well, we appreciate the fact that you've written the book. We also appreciate the fact that you've come on air with us this morning to tell us the journey behind the book. It's called Behind It All, available on takealot.com. That's where you can go and look for it if that's what you need to get right now, and add that to your book collection. It certainly sounds like the kind of thing that we all need right now. And Lesley, to you, thanks very much for bearing your soul and sharing this message, because I think right now it's probably needed more so than ever. So thanks very much for that.
Thank you, Aiden. Thank you, guys.
Once again, the book is called Behind It All, written by somebody who's lived through incredible grief and has documented her thought process, her feelings, and her emotions in book form. Behind It All by Lesley Achilles. Brings us now to, Lesley Achilles, my apologies, brings us now to 5 minutes.